You are now listening to Black Coffee, Crime, and Crochet, a true crime podcast where cozy meets criminal, hosted by Jasmine C.L. Prince. Grab your yarn, pour up an iced coffee, let's sit through the chaos.
Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Black Coffee, Crime, and Crochet, the cozy true crime podcast where we sip, stitch, and spill the stories behind the scams. I am your host, as always, Jasmine C.L. Prince, and y'all, this is another month. We are starting a brand new series. I am excited about this one because it is all about the influencers, okay? So this series is called Influencers Scam Era, Flued Out and Fraudulent. I'm really excited about this one. So y'all, let's just get into this, okay? So picture it. It's the summer of 2020. The world's shut down, checks are hitting mailboxes, and everybody's trying to breathe between panic and prayer. $1,400. That's the government's way of saying, hang on just a little longer. And for one Texas couple, that number became more than relief money. It became a calling, a promise, a business built on blessings. They called it Blessings in No Time, BINT for short, a faith-based movement that claimed to help Black families build wealth and community through giving. No banks, no interest, just gifts. At least that's what they said. Behind the Instagram quotes and gospel playlists was a $10 million fraud that turned church circles into cash pipelines. And today, we're pulling that thread. I know most of y'all, especially if you're a Black church person, had to remember seeing this all over Facebook. There were so many blessing looms and blessing circles that were going around, but this one, I actually remember seeing it. It's crazy. We're going to get into it. But before that, y'all know how we got to start. Our iced coffee of the week. So, let's see. Today's sip is an iced brown sugar vanilla oat milk latte. So get your 2 shots of espresso or strong coffee, 1.5 tablespoons brown sugar syrup, half a teaspoon of vanilla syrup. You can do half a teaspoon or half an ounce of vanilla syrup. And then top it with 3/4 cup of oat milk and plenty of ice. Ice at the end. So I've been following a lot of baristas on TikTok, and what I learned is your ice goes in last. I did not know that. So what they said is you either can do your flavor syrups, coffee, milk, ice, or your milk, flavored syrups, coffee, and ice. But either way, however you do it, make sure your ice is last. I did not know that, but y'all, since I've switched to putting my ice in last, I definitely can taste the difference. So if you make coffee at home and you're new to making it at home, add your coffee last, not first, and let me know if you can taste the difference. So there's that. And then crochet segment. Okay, so hubby is being so patient with me. I don't think I will ever crochet another wearable using a 3mm hook because I feel like I cannot finish this. It's taking me forever. I finally finished the whole back panel and both front panels, and I'm about halfway done with one sleeve. So I have to do my other sleeve and the collar and then sew it all together. I'm hoping I will finish it by, I don't know, let's just say Thanksgiving. I'm hoping I'll be done with it before Thanksgiving, but at least I'm giving myself Thanksgiving as a deadline because this is just crazy. But he's being very patient with me. But I'm used to most of my cardigans that I've made. This is a polo shirt too. It was the first time I'm doing it. But most of my crochet wearables have been 6.5 to like 11mm hooks. So they work up really, really quick. This 3mm, I just probably never again. I've usually only done that small for cuffs or ribbing, not the whole project. So yeah, it's trying to take me out. Okay, anyways, enough blabbing. I'll probably leave a timestamp for 4.5 minutes to start the story. But here we go. So, Marlon and LaShonda Moore weren't your average scammers. He was known around Dallas as DJ ASAP, the guy who'd been on BET's 106 and Park for years. He was on for about 4 years, I believe. She was a licensed real estate agent and former insurance adjuster with a flair for presentation. Together, they were young, black, married, attractive, and had just appeared on OWN's Family or Fiancé. They looked like success wrapped in Sunday's best. So when they met in 2017 and married in 2019, they talked about changing the culture of money for their people. Marlon branded himself as ASAP the Mogul, with his saying that he always coined, quote, always serve a purpose. He partnered with DJ ASAP, the brand, and created Mogul Behavior, which was a nonprofit meets movement teaching, quote, wealth mindset. LaShonda played the role of financial strategist and faith-based motivator. So when the pandemic hit and the government sent out those $1,400 checks, I know y'all remember those, the Moores saw an opportunity. They pitched BINT as a way to, quote, flip your blessing, to turn that stimulus money into an $11,200 miracle. I'm going to try not to jump ahead of myself, but y'all, come on now. You think you can start with 1,400 and flip it to 11,000? I think this is 800% return on your investment. Okay. If the Moores lacked real financial credentials, how did they convince so many to trust them with their money? The answer lies in a savvy construction of credibility through media and religion rather than through any legitimate track record. Like I said, Marlon and LaShonda met in 2017 and married in 2019, and along the way, they courted the spotlight as an aspirational power couple. Their big break in the public profile came when they were cast on the Oprah Winfrey Network reality show, like I said, Family and Fiancé, in early 2020. The show features engaged couples bringing together their disapproving families for counseling. Indeed, the Moores episode aired around the time of their wedding. This reality TV appearance gave the couple a veneer of fame and respectability. Regulatory complaints and media reports later referred to them as, quote, reality show stars, an image the Moores actively embraced. They understood that appearing on a reputable network like OWN, known for inspirational and family-oriented content, could, quote, enhance the appearance of credibility for them in the eyes of potential recruits. As analysts noted, the Moores leveraged the audience's pre-existing trust of the OWN brand and their sympathetic on-screen persona as a shortcut to credibility. In other words, people assumed that if Oprah's network featured this couple, they must be upstanding and trustworthy. Marlon and LaShonda milked that assumption to persuade others that BINT was likewise trustworthy. Beyond reality TV, Marlon's BET 106 and Park credentials and local celebrity as DJ ASAP further bolstered their trustworthiness. Being a familiar face from television and music events lent him social capital. He wasn't a random stranger cold calling about an investment. He was a figure fans remember from TV or the Dallas club scene. This halo effect of minor celebrity was crucial. As one analyst noted, the Moores, quote, relied heavily on manufactured public credibility, leveraging their minor celebrity status to establish the trust, end quote, needed to solicit large sums of money. Many vulnerable investors unfortunately conflated fame with competence, assuming that a DJ who had been on TV and had a couple who had been on OWN must know what they're doing financially. The Moores consciously cultivated this relatability and fame to bypass the usual skepticism that might greet unknown financial advisors. They also wrapped BINT in a mantle of faith and community uplift, this is what makes it an affinity fraud, which further disarmed skepticism. The very name Blessings in No Time and the terminology of blessings tapped into church-style language. The Moores pitched this scheme in religious terms, encouraging participants to recruit their friends and church members and communities to join in doing God's work of mutual aid, which Not only are you scamming people, but you're using God to scam people. That's just a whole nother level of, I don't want to say narcissism because that word gets thrown around a lot, but that just has to be another level of scamming to throw God into your scam. That's just crazy. Okay, so this faith-based framing created a moral pressure to participate and not question the operation. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton later condemned this tactic, stating, quote, BINT scammed Texans out of money by exploiting their deeply held religious faith during a national crisis. This is despicable behavior, end quote, which, yes. Indeed, by casting their money scheme as a Christian communal effort to, quote, help others overcome hardship, the Moors made victims feel like doubting or pulling out would be letting down their brothers and sisters. Participants were even forbidden from airing complaints on social media, and many stayed silent out of loyalty or hope, or even as red flags grew. In sum, the Moors expertly played on crucial trust factors: religion, racial solidarity, and media visibility to mask the emptiness of their financial promises. But let's take a quick detour, because on paper, and we're going to get into like exactly what it was. But before we do that, on paper, it looked like something many of us already know. So I did kind of a deep dive on the real sou-sous, because I didn't realize that was something that actually is a legitimate way of people. Anyways, let me not get ahead of myself. Sou-sous are legitimate depending on how you do it. So long before banks or credit scores, the elders in West Africa and the Caribbean had their own financial systems. They called it a sou-sou or sou-sou, a community savings circle. So here's how it worked. A group of people, which was a fixed set number of people, agreed to put in a set amount, maybe $100 each month. Every month, one person takes home the full pot. Next month, it's someone else's turn. Everybody gets back exactly what they put in. No profit, no loss, no recruiting, just discipline and trust. Sou-Sous helped folks buy land, start businesses, and survive when banks wouldn't lend a cent. They're built on honor. So when the Moors used that language, blessings, community, faith, it didn't sound suspicious. It sounded familiar. But a real sou-sou doesn't promise an 800% return, and it sure doesn't need new recruits to pay old ones. Once you add profit and pressure to bring in friends, it's not a sou-sou anymore, it's a pyramid scheme. So here's a deep dive on real sou-sous. In a traditional form, it is a traditional form of an informal savings club with deep roots in West Africa and the Caribbean. The very term sou-sou comes from the Yoruba word esusu. I'm so sorry about my pronunciation, reflecting its West African origin. Enslaved Africans carried this practice to the Americas, and it spread throughout the Caribbean diaspora. Today, variations of the sou-sou exist under many local names. For example, in Jamaica, it's called a partner or pardoner. In Haiti, it's a soul. In Guyana, a box hand. And in parts of West Africa, it might simply be known as an sou-sou. Despite the different names, the core concept is the same. A group of people agreeing to pool and share funds in turns as a way to save money together. It's essentially a form of a rotating savings and credit association. In practical terms, it works like a community savings circle. A small trusted group, often family members, friends, or coworkers, agree to contribute a fixed amount of money into a common fund on a regular schedule, weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly. Each cycle, one member of the group gets to take home the entire pooled amount, often called a hand or draw. The payout rotates each period to a different member until everyone in the group has received their lump sum. Then a new round can begin. For example, if 10 people contribute $100 each month, one member will receive a $1,000 payout each month, and after 10 months, every member will have received $1,000 once. Importantly, no extra money is created in the system. Over the course of a full cycle, each participant gets out only what they put in. There is no interest, no profit, and no recruitment of new members for payouts in a legitimate sou-sou. It's a zero-sum redistribution of the group's own money, functioning as a disciplined savings mechanism in a form of social support. So, I wanted to make sure I said that because I don't want to assume people knew what it really was. So, key differences: the structure of participation. In a sou-sou, the group size is fixed and typically small. Contributions and payouts. In a legitimate sou-sou, each member will receive exactly what they contributed, like I said. And then the role of recruitment: there is no recruitment in a sou-sou. You don't have to recruit anyone to get your payout. Your turn comes by agreement, not by bringing in new members. And then the legality and transparency: a sou-sou is an informal but legal arrangement, essentially an honor-based group savings plan. Everyone knows where the money is going to a member from the circle in turn, and there's no deception involved. By contrast, pyramid schemes are explicitly outlawed as fraudulent, endless chain enterprises. Promoters of these schemes often use opaque terms like gifts or mystical names like blessing looms or money board to disguise the fact that it's just shuffling money from new recruits to earlier ones. In a legitimate sou-sou, there's also an element of accountability. Often, one trusted member acts as treasurer to ensure everyone contributes on schedule. So, in short, if you're being promised a windfall profit for recruiting others, it's not a sou-sou, it's a scam. A real sou-sou has no winners and losers. Everyone eventually gets out what they put in, whereas a pyramid scheme by design creates winners, those who cash out early, and losers, those left at the bottom. So as the District of Columbia's Consumer Protection Office warns, quote, although there are legitimate sou-sous, there are also scams parading as sou-sous that are illegal pyramid schemes, end quote. So, like I said, I just wanted to make sure I said that because there is, legitimate ones, there's origin, there's reason, and the origin of a sou-sou is very beautiful, and you would hope that ones that you see today are the same, but we just know that most of them are scams, but they are beautiful in their original context and setting. So y'all can see how in the pandemic era, how these were easy to exploit people. So during the pandemic, a wave of fraudulent money schemes known as these blessing looms, gifting flowers, the sou-sou boards, they blew up on Facebook. Like literally, we couldn't go, I don't know how many, I think every year, especially around Christmas, we would see these start popping up to where on the news, people would say, oh, it's that time of year again. If you see these blessing looms, if you see these gifting flowers, just know that they're illegal pyramid schemes. That's how much they were popping up. But promoters of these schemes appropriated the friendly language of the traditional sou-sou to make their pitch sound trustworthy and community-oriented. So, okay. I have a lot more on this deep dive, but I don't want y'all to get bored. So I think you pretty much got the point. So let's get into what exactly the Moores did. So now that they're armed with their crafted credibility, the Moores launched BINT, Blessings in No Time, in mid-2020, just as the pandemic's economic pain set in. Like I said, y'all picture this. It's 2020, the world shut down. We got these $1,400 checks. And the fact that they made their buy-in $1,400 is like, oh, you're not losing anything. Just this extra money that you got, just put that in and turn it and flip it in. And everybody was doing that. Like, you need to use your $1,400 to start a business. And if you're not, then you're not doing nothing. And people were just trying to survive. But people kept saying like, oh, if you didn't use it to start a business, you wasted it. That really irritated me when people were saying that. But okay. So They marketed BINT as a members-only, community-based blessing program to help people build generational wealth quickly. At the time when many people were losing jobs and hope, and initially BINT was open to everybody, but then they shut it down and said it was only for Black people. It was exclusively for Black people. So importantly, BINT required a buy-in of $1,400, like I said, an amount that raised eyebrows because it aligned so closely, exactly almost, with the federal stimulus checks many had received. Federal stimulus checks that many had received. The pitch was that by contributing roughly the same amount of, quote, extra money the government had given you, you could turn it into a much larger blessing for yourself and your family. So how it worked, BINT was structured like a classic sou-sou or gifting circle, but with the deceptive twist promising huge profits. The Moors described it in terms of nature's elements and spiritual language. Recruits joined a playing board because they made, like I watched the American Greed episode of this. So they made it a playing board, which intrigued people because there was a gaming element and people loved playing games. So they called them playing boards with spots organized into 4 levels called fire, wind, earth, and water. Each new participant at the bottom fire level had to gift $1,400 to the single person at the top water position. In addition, each member was told to recruit 2 new people, often friends or family, as their contribution to keep the circle growing. Once 8 new people joined, filling all fire spots, the person in the water position who had been waiting at the top would receive an $11,200 payout, 8 times the $1,400 input. This 8-to-1 payoff was touted as an 800% return or being blessed out of the board. So after a payout, that board would split and the next person would move up toward the top. So members were encouraged to keep cycling through boards to rack up multiple payouts, and indeed some participants bought into multiple spots, with some paying tens of thousands of dollars to secure several positions. So in the American Greed episode, there's this one woman who had a traumatic brain injury, and she was trying to figure out, how she was going to provide for herself, I think her husband and her son or brother, one other family member. So she paid for her spot, her husband's spot, and that brother or son, I can't remember. She paid for 3 spots essentially because there was no what's the word I'm looking for? There was no cap on how many spots you could pay into. They just wanted the money. So even though she hadn't seen any returns on her spot, her thought was, okay, well, if I buy 2 more spots, that increases my chance of, quote, blessing out. So when they're talking to her and they're talking to her husband, he's like, he was skeptical from the beginning because he was listening to and they did their recruiting calls on Zoom. So he said he's listening to Marlon talking, and he said, he's a DJ, so of course he's good at hyping people up, but he was very skeptical of it. So he said they had to eventually pay $85 a month for the online platform, because if you didn't pay the $85 a month, then you couldn't cash out. You couldn't see anything. They essentially locked you out. And this is the point of where recruitment started slowing down. So they're trying to figure out other ways to generate money. So initially you could see everyone's spot on the board. And he's saying he's watching his name bounce around to different boards, but he was never getting anywhere close to that coveted water spot. Meanwhile, though, LaShonda and Marlon, they had family members who were involved in it, and themselves and all of their family members kept getting blessed out. and they showed her LaShonda's name by herself, how many boards she closed out, and she herself closed out 143 boards. So 143 boards that she closed out at 143 boards at $11,200 per, right? Make sure I get these numbers right. 11,200. That's $1.6 million, just her by herself, that she's cashing out. Meanwhile, people are giving all of their savings that they had, and they're not seeing any returns. And this is like 6 months of them waiting. And the reason why most people were so, I guess, eager to do it was because they were promising a guaranteed or a money back guarantee. So at any time you could call your initial investment out and they would give you your money back. However, because people weren't getting paid, so many people were asking for refunds that they eventually took that option off of the website. Again, American Greed episode, and there was another lady who said she tried to request her refund 3 times. On the 3rd time she tried to do it, the option was taken away. So she started calling, and nobody was answering her calls. So then this is when LaShonda started getting real, not so nice. And she would go on these calls like, the reason why it's taking so long is because of y'all. And y'all keep saying all of our family is getting blessed out with Sarai, but there's so many other of our family who's not getting blessed out, and they mad at us. It's just the way it goes. It's the system or whatever. And people are like, girl, please. Because we can see that you're getting all this money, but we haven't gotten anything. So it's just, this whole thing was crazy. So, let me get back to my notes because I just went off on this tangent. So after a payout, that board would split and the next people would move up toward the top. Members were encouraged to keep cycling through boards to rack up multiple payouts. And indeed, some participants bought into multiple spots, with some paying tens of thousands of dollars to secure several positions. Marlon and LaShonda guaranteed refunds if anyone was unsatisfied or wanted out early, insisting BINT was a, quote, no-risk opportunity. The Moores spun BINT as a quasi-philanthropic, quote, faith-based wealth-building organization, end quote. They explicitly targeted the African-American community, invoking ideas of economic empowerment, mutual aid, and religious faith. At one point, they were on their Zoom call and they said, we're both, or he said, I'm a man of God, right? Okay. You're not. Membership was initially open to all, like I said, but the Moores soon restricted BINT to Black participants only, framing it as an initiative for Black collective uplift during a time of racial and economic turmoil. They leveraged shared identity and church-like language, even creating a so-called BINT Bible of rules and encouraging group prayers to foster trust and solidarity. Promotional calls and webinars were filled with references to blessings, community, and God's favor, making the scheme appear benevolent rather than predatory. And that's another thing. They wanted people to recruit friends and family, but they didn't want them promoting it or talking about it on social media. If it was legitimate, you would want people talking about it on social media. So the fact they were like, yeah, bring people, but no, don't put it on social media. No, don't talk bad about it. Or, like they would come for people if they were speaking badly about it, which is even more so lending to the fact that y'all know that y'all not doing right. However, beneath the feel-good rhetoric, BINT was nothing more than an illegal pyramid scheme. Its model depended on continuously bringing in new payers. As with any chain letter scheme, it was mathematically doomed to collapse once recruitment stalled. In reality, the, quote, blessings paid out to early members were just funded by influx of later members' $1,400 payments, robbing Peter to pay Paul. As the Federal Trade Commission later summed up, very few consumers make any money in such scams, and those who do are often encouraged to reinvest their gains into the scheme. Most people ultimately lose everything they put in. Crucially, the Moors themselves were rigging the system to ensure they profited most. I got ahead of myself, but it's okay. They placed themselves and sometimes their family members in the prime top water spots on many boards simultaneously. This way, a large share of every cycle's $1,400 payments flowed directly to Marlon and LaShonda. They also began charging members monthly user fees, around $85, to access a BINT mobile app that purported to offer financial education, an app that never actually delivered on those promises. All told, by late 2020, the Moors were raking in millions while members were left scrambling to recruit others in hopes of seeing their promised eightfold blessing. Another thing they did was they're cashing in all this money, right? And then they're flaunting it on social media. They're literally for his birthday, they went like skydiving and they went on all these lavish trips, and they're flaunting it on social media. Meanwhile, you got people who are still waiting on their initial $1,400, but you're literally blowing it in their faces and then daring them really to say anything. It's just crazy. Y'all could have been real low key about it and making it seem like y'all wasn't getting nothing either, but you weren't even smart about how you were spending the money. So why did people trust them? There's several reasons. BINT's rapid growth, an estimated 8,000 participants enrolled by the end of 2020, was fueled by Moore's savvy exploitation of the moment. Several factors help explain why so many people believed in the Moors and their blessing scheme. So, of course, the top one is pandemic financial desperation. The COVID-19 crisis hit minority and low-income communities especially hard. By mid-2020, many of the Moors' target audience had lost jobs, seen hours cut, or fallen behind on bills. A one-time $1,400 stimulus check could only go so far. People were actively looking for miraculous solutions to their money troubles. BINT promised an instant financial miracle, turning $1,400 into over $11,000 in a matter of weeks. For someone worrying about rent, medical bills, or debt, that kind of return sounded like an answered prayer. As one victim later said, quote, "People were really vulnerable, just ready for any kind of hope. They were selling people a dream," end quote. Then we have the cultural religious appeal. By couching the scheme in familiar concepts like a sou-sou, a rotating savings club common in Black and Caribbean communities, and using church terminology, blessings, testimonials, and prayer, the Moors made BINT seem trustworthy and even righteous. They claimed God and community were at the heart of it. This deflected skepticism. After all, it was presented not as a greedy investment grab, but as, quote, helping each other through blessings, end quote. The Moors even suggested that BINT was a response to racial injustice and hardship, launching not long after the George Floyd protests in 2020, implying it was a way for Black Americans to pull together and lift each other up. Such framing made recruits feel they were part of a collective good cause, not a scam. And then the Moors' persona and pitch. Marlon and LaShonda's polished image and confidence as leaders greatly lowered guards. On Zoom calls, Marlon came across as an inspiring motivator. He would tell new members things like, "You're here because someone loves you. Say thank you," setting a warm, inclusive tone. He urged people to get friends excited to join, assuring them, when you get them there, we're going to do the rest. LaShonda often handed handled doubts by invoking her own experience and chastising those who didn't recruit hard enough, at one point blaming lazy members for board stalling. Together, they exuded authority as if they had cracked the code to financial freedom. Their past accomplishments, a TV DJ, a businesswoman, a happy family on reality TV, gave them credibility. Many participants genuinely believed the Moores had special financial insight and connections and thus trusted their assurances that BINT was safe, lucrative, and legal. So, in sum, the Moores masterfully tapped into their community's aspirations and anxieties. They preached a message of hope and wealth that resonated in a dark time. And for a while, it seemed to pay off. A number of early participants did receive those $11,200 blessings, which the Moores publicized as testimonies to keep the recruiting momentum going. Seeing friends or church members post about receiving a big payout convinced others that this might actually be real. As one member explained, when you see that 8,000 people are part of a community, you believe what they're saying, end quote. Sadly, these early successes were just bait in a classic pyramid ploy. Again, referring to the American Greed episode, one lady said that she got a call from someone who was one of the ones who got their money back. And she was like, I'm only telling you this because I actually got my money. So you need to sign up too. So of course, if someone's coming to you saying, I actually got my money, then you're going to think it's legit. And that's another reason why it was so successful for so long, because those early people were then going and telling people, I got my 11,000, so you can go ahead and do it too. It's legitimate. So, by the end of 2020, nearly 8,000 people had joined. Some invested their entire stimulus checks, others their savings. But by January 2021, the music stopped, boards froze, and refund requests piled up. So, let's get into the fall, because they, of course, vanished. They disappeared. As complaints poured in, the Texas Attorney General and the FTC opened investigations. By June 2021, they filed suits to freeze the Moores' assets. Victims said refund requests went ignored while the couple threw lavish birthday parties and traveled cross-country. By 2023, a federal court ordered the Moores to pay over $10.7 million and banned them for life from running any multi-level marketing or pyramid operation. Then came the criminal indictments: wire fraud, money laundering, the whole playlist. If convicted, they face decades in prison. And like I said, their story even ended up on American Greed, because of course it did. Why wouldn't it? And the cruelest part, they used faith and culture as camouflage. They took a tradition that was once about uplift and turned it into exploitation. So, again, real sou-sus were born out of necessity, a way for communities to build when systems shut them out. They were about trust, discipline, and honor. What they did was the opposite. They took the language of faith and heritage of sou-sus and sold it for profit. They didn't just scam people financially, they robbed a culture legacy of its meaning. So, I believe at I believe they are still waiting. I think they're still waiting on their indictment. So the Federal Trade Commission and Arkansas Attorney General followed with a settlement requiring $450,000 in restitution and, most importantly, a permanent ban, right, from prohibiting them. So okay, here we go. So then came the hammer from the U.S. Department of Justice. A federal grand jury indicted them on charges of conspiracy to commit wire fraud, and money laundering. They ultimately pled guilty to one count of money laundering, a charge that carries up to 10 years in prison. Arkansas Attorney General Tim Griffin summed it up with a warning, quote, "Justice awaits those who prey on the needy," end quote. That permanent regulatory ban from the FTC is significant. It means the government considers the Moores permanently unfit to operate any business involving recruitment or commissions. Essentially, they've been branded as a persistent threat to consumers. So, they pled guilty in January 2025, but they have not been sentenced yet. I believe they're trying to get that set for 2026, but I'm trying to see where I put that. Okay, yeah. So as of 2025, the criminal case is proceeding, underscoring the severity of the fraud. Okay, yeah. I just want to make sure I got all that right. So, okay. So yeah, that's the story. So sip or spill. Were Marlon and LaShonda Moore evil masterminds or just greedy influencers who believe their own hype? Sip if you think they knew exactly what they were doing, or spill if you think they thought God was really going to cover this foolishness. Either way, those blessings are now frozen assets. So, that wraps up episode 1 of our Influencer Scam Era series, Blessings in No Time, Faith, Family, and the Sou-So Scheme. Next week, we are heading overseas for a Flued Out and Fraudulent. We are covering the Hush Puppy story, the billionaire Gucci master who used Instagram flexes to hide a global cyber fraud operation until the feds came knocking in Dubai. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to follow, rate, and review Black Coffee, Crime, and Crochet wherever you listen. Your reviews truly help my little coffee and crime corner grow. But before we go, we definitely have to do a listener review. This one comes from True Crime in Java Chat. She said, I'm assuming it's she. If it's not a she, please forgive me. Said, good one, rated it 5 stars. Amazing. These cases are ones I haven't heard of. She has a great voice and thorough coverage. Thank you. One of my other true crime friends, April, her podcast is Crime to Burn. So go check her out too. She tells me that my voice is soothing too. I never thought that I had a soothing voice, but she said it, and now True Crime in Java Chat has said it. So thank you. I appreciate that because I kind of cringe at my voice, but that's helpful to know that it helps you all, or you all find it soothing. So there's a review. If you want a chance to possibly hear your review read, go ahead and head over to Apple Podcasts, leave a review, comment over on Spotify. I do respond back to all the comments over there. I also have a discussion group on Facebook if you'd like to join that and talk about the cases or suggest any cases you want me to cover. Go ahead and join that. So yeah, I also have a TikTok and Instagram. I am at Black Coffee, Crime, and Crochet. Where you can hang out with me in between episodes. And yeah, all right, BC3 crew, that's it. Until next week, keep your drinks iced, your yarn untangled, and your discernment sharp. See y'all next week. Bye.
Disclaimer. Great effort is made to ensure that all materials used in Black Coffee, Crime, and Crochet adhere to fair use guidelines. No copyright infringement is intended. If you are the copyright owner or represent the owner of any material used in this content and have concerns about its use, please contact me and I will promptly address the issue.